And we are live. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Superherocuts show where we're talking things Marvel, DC, and Star Wars. It's your boy Stevie Hayes. So happy you're here today. So obviously we're live on a Saturday, which is very different. I'm usually not live on Saturdays, right? Usually no even no videos coming out on Saturdays, but something that we're going to do now is basically whenever there are like what's the best way to say this? Whenever there are shows, that are going on like Loki or like the Ahsoka show that's going on right now. I'm going to be doing an episode review for each week, and Comic Cuts is going to hop on some of these episodes too. But I know for Loki he'll be on there obviously. So, but yeah, man, we're here to talk about the Ahsoka episodes 1 and 2. I want to give you some of my breakdowns. I'm not going to break it down by episode. I'm kind of just going to do like one full thing. I'm kind of just going to give you like an information like splatter of just everything that I've gotten from the Ahsoka show, and then I'm just going to break down how I feel about things and the stuff, basically all the important things that I saw in the Ahsoka show. I want to address and explain because I feel like there are a lot of questions, and I think the main reason why is because there are a lot of people that didn't see Star Wars Rebels, and so I want to kind of break it down. And we're going to start by me just telling you guys the ending of Star Wars Rebels. So in the final episode, right, of the series, the Ghost Crew, led by Ezra Bridger, continues their struggle against the Galactic Empire. They work to liberate Lothal, a planet that holds significant importance to the rebellion. Throughout the series, Ezra has developed his Jedi abilities under the guidance of Kanan Jarrus. At this point, Kanan is dead. In the climactic conclusion, Ezra comes up with a plan to free Lothal from Imperial control once and for all. This involves a daring mission that lures Imperial forces into a trap and uses the power of the planet itself to create a massive barrier around Lothal, preventing the Imperial fleet from leaving. However, executing this plan required a sacrifice. Ezra realizes that the only way to fully seal the Imperial forces is to take himself and his ally, Grand Admiral Thrawn. Okay, so and basically he took Thrawn into hyperspace aboard Thrawn's ship, and Ezra and Thrawn, they disappeared into this unknown space. And so the crew of Ghosts, including Kanan's former Padawan, Hera, Sabine, and just yeah, basically like the main people on the team were just Ezra, Hera, and Sabine. But Ezra's gone, so really like Sabine and Hera are basically left to continue the fight against the Empire without Ezra. And basically the ending also includes a crazy time jump showing where the rebellion grows in strengths, leading to the eventual events of A New Hope. And the series basically ends with a moment where Sabine is kind of speaking from the future, recounts how the Ghost Crew's actions had a lasting impact on the galaxy, and the she reveals that her and Ahsoka are on a mission to find Ezra, suggesting that the story continues beyond the series. And so now we are in that story that continued beyond the series, right? But we're not in it as like it isn't what we think, right? Like a lot of people thought the Ahsoka show was going to be a direct continuation after Star Wars Rebels. And as it is a continuation of the Star Wars Rebels show, it is not exactly where it left off, okay? And so now I want to get to some of the things I liked about the Ahsoka show so far, okay? So I think the parallel to the Star Wars Rebels show is perfect. I think the castings in the show are perfect. And as I said, right, we are showed things from the animated show, like prime example, in the last episode of Star Wars Rebels, we saw the painting of Ezra, Kanan, Hera, Zeb, basically the whole team, and now we ended up seeing that same painting in live action, which looked identical. Everything looked literally identical to the freaking show. It's amazing to see. Hera, I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She's the perfect casting for Hera. If you don't know, she is the guy that plays Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor. That's his wife. She's a great casting to play Hera. And I'm pretty sure in episode 2, we get to see her actually pilot a ship, which I think was also super awesome to see. I think the cinematography was amazing. The views, bro. when you go to the planet where Sabine's home is, and you're looking off the freaking like how can I explain it? Like you're looking off these ledges, and it's just like sky and beauty. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And going to like the different planets, it was a vibe. I honestly loved it. I loved the music. Like in the music, we got so many different types of sounds in the music. Like in one of the scenes, like they played like a hint of Kylo Ren's theme, which was dope. And then we also even got to see like where they did renditions of the original Star Wars theme, but then they kind of added their own little like funk to it to make sure it's not the exact same. Like those are the things that like as a Star Wars fan I'm looking for, and I honestly loved it. Like I was like in the Greatest Showman when that girl is singing that song "Never Enough" and Hugh Jackman's character is just singing in the back like this. That was basically me, like just listening to the music and watching these two episodes. And so I believe that this was the perfect build up, like these two episodes, and I believe that as much as there were some slow parts in the show that a lot of people have talked about. You see, like I really have nothing against slow burn, but when it's like the first 2 to 3 episodes, but like at a certain point it has to build up, you know what I mean? And so these were some perfect some slow burn episodes, while kind of like giving us still like dope action. So yeah, I was very satisfied. Now, there were some things that I didn't like. The main thing for me, and maybe I'm just a little too like um I don't know, extra. I don't know. But to me, the lightsaber choreography was kind of like not as good as I wanted to be. Like, when I'm watching Ahsoka fight in the show, to me it seems a little novice. It seems a little like I don't want to say whack, but it seems a little like not as like calculated, and it doesn't look like, I don't know, like when I watch like Revenge of the Sith lightsaber fighting, even when I watch in Mandalorian season 2 when Din Djarin squared off against Moff Gideon, or even when Ahsoka fought Morgan in Mandalorian season 2, to me the lightsaber and fight choreography was just a whole lot better than what we saw. And maybe that's just going to improve as the show goes on. But in the first 2 episodes, I wasn't the biggest fan of all of the lightsaber choreography. The one I did like the most was when Sabine fought Shin, which we'll talk about later on. But that was probably my biggest con. But other than that, show 2 episodes were amazing. So let's get into some of the important things that I cared about in this show. Okay, so the first thing is that Ahsoka, and this is what a lot of people were talking about. Ahsoka used to train Sabine. So Sabine called her master in the show, and I'm pretty sure we saw that in the trailers as well. And a lot of people was kind of talking about it. So I don't believe that Sabine is force sensitive. Because I mean, if she was, we would have known that, but by now, and we saw by the lightsaber battle that she had with Shin, obviously she has no power to use the force at all. So, but and which is a very interesting thing, right? And the one thing that kind of links to it is that there was a point that, and we see this in the show, where Sabine stopped searching for Ezra for some odd reason, which I believe that we're going to dig more into, because Sabine and Ahsoka are going to be together, because I do believe that probably the main reason why she's not with, why the search probably stopped, was because her and Ahsoka had to have a falling out. And Ahsoka hints to that in the show when she was like, yeah, like I walked away from Anakin and I walked away from Sabine. So there had to be some falling out where Ahsoka was just like, screw you, I'm going. And then, that's kind of created like this issue, or this like silent beef between them two that needs to be resolved. And I could tell even like in the episode when Sabine lost the map, Ahsoka was like, you've done enough. Like she was just being just really like rude, which I would have been heated too. But yeah, so it's just, they obviously weren't meshing well. So there was a fallout. So that's also weird, because Sabine as a character, at least when I watched Star Wars Rebels, came off to me as like it didn't matter what Ahsoka was going to do. Her focus was on finding Ezra. But I think that as we go on the episodes, we're going to see some stuff from the past where I believe that her and Ahsoka really like traveled everywhere, and they really tried to figure out where was Ezra. And I just don't think I think they just gave up at a point. Now obviously Ahsoka didn't, because we saw in Mando season 2, she was already asking where Thrawn was. So yeah, very interesting. But here is the difference, and this is also where I think the beef is going to come back in for them too. Ahsoka is trying to find Thrawn, not Ezra. I think she just brought Sabine along the ride because they know that Ezra's a part of this. But I don't really think Ahsoka's like focus is on finding Ezra. I think her focus was always on finding Thrawn to kill him and to end, whatever is coming to them. And so, as I said, that's going to be an interesting dynamic that we're going to see in the next episodes to come. Now, let's talk about Balin and Shin. All right, Balin and Shin, they're the characters. That basically it's like this big dude and this little girl, not little girl, but and this girl. But basically she's like the Padawan to Balin, if that makes sense. So Balin, okay, Balin was trained in the ways of the Jedi, and 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 that's kind of like the consensus that I'm getting. It's not necessarily confirmed 100%, but a lot of people are kind of coming up with the thing that he was trained as a Jedi, and just based on the dialogue, even when in episode 2 when Morgan told him to kill Ahsoka, and he was like, "It's a shame." You can tell that he was a Jedi at a certain point, and even though this guy has this dark side, using the dark side, you can tell there's still some light in him somewhere. But anyways, Balin and Shin. Balin looks massive. Like even in the first scene, he looks like a dog. I mean, I was entrenched into that dude. Pause. He was amazing. I'm a fan of Balin, bro. I liked him, man. He was menacing, but he was also like very smart and tactical. And the fighting is very like, what's the word? It's very like, I don't want to say stiff, but it's a very powerful fighting style that he's using. Not much, not much lightsaber movement because he doesn't have to because he's so strong. And Shin, you can tell Shin is violent. Shin is more of like the killer on the team. Like she is a animal, like and as I said, when she cooks Sabine, that also shows it. But in the opening scene, dude, she's just destroying everybody, and I love seeing that. And I was very like hyped when Shin came out, and Shin is actually starting to become a fan favorite online. A lot of people like Shin, so they were really good additions. And I do believe that Shin is most likely the daughter of Balin. I think he had her and then started to train her in the ways of the Force and in the ways of the Jedi and Sith or whatever it is. Because I just don't. When you look at the timetables, it just wouldn't add up at that point. So definitely his daughter. And so yeah, that's really all I feel about Balin and Shin so far. I mean, we haven't gotten that much backstory about them two, but as in the scenes that we've seen them in, I've been impressed all the way. And now Morgan Elsbeth. Okay, now let's talk about her, because Morgan Elsbeth might be one of the top 3 most important characters in the show. And that reason is because Morgan Elsbeth is something that I really didn't know, which is she is a Night Sister, okay, which is very, very interesting. And basically one of the things that she said in, I think it was in the second episode, is that her and Thrawn have been communicating through time and space, which leads me to think that they've been communicating maybe through the world between worlds. Now, if that is the case, right, that opens up a lot of, questions for us, right? Question number 1, how would they be communicating? Because how could they be accessing the world between worlds to go back in time or go back through space or whatever to communicate? How is that happening? How are they reaching those things? Now, maybe she's going to a place to summon those. I don't know. I honestly don't know. And we're gonna have to look and see the answers. But now Ezra is with Thrawn technically, so maybe he's using Ezra to be able to communicate to Morgan through the world between worlds. I'm not sure, but I think that's something that needs to be looked into a little more, because I think that there's a lot there that hasn't kind of been grazed on, I guess you can say. Now I do want to talk about who the Night Sisters are, because a lot of people don't know. So let me just read this off to you. Okay, so the Night Sisters are a group of dark side Force users in the Star Wars universe. They primarily appear in the animated series Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which you can watch on Disney Plus. And the Night Sisters reside on the planet Dathomir, which is a remote and mysterious world known for its connection to the Force, very similar to like a Dagobah type of planet. So it is led by someone named Mother Talzin. And the Night Sisters are known for their use of dark magic and their affinity for manipulating the Force for their own purposes. They possess unique abilities, including the power to control and shape the dark side energy of Dathomir, One of their most distinctive features in their use of Night Sister magic, a form of magic that allows them to perform spells and rituals. The Night Sisters are depicted as a powerful and secretive society of witches. They are often involved in political intrigues and power struggles within the galaxy, especially during the Clone Wars. They have occasionally aligned themselves with various factions, including the Separatists and even Darth Sidious, aka Emperor Palpatine, although they usually act independently. One of the most notable Night Sisters is Asajj Ventress, who was originally introduced as a Sith apprentice to Count Dooku, but later turned away from the dark side and sought revenge against him. Her journey it's basically just really big in the storyline of Star Wars, the Clone Wars. But overall, the Night Sisters add a unique and mystical aspect to Star Wars. And and this is why I love Star Wars. I love the mythology of Star Wars. So with the fact that Morgan Elsbeth is a Night Sister, this opens up a bunch of doors of dark side magic, which is probably the answer to how she's been able to communicate with Thrawn, but also makes her power level like on a godly type of level. Like she's going to be OP. Now, there are some other question marks that I have. And before we go, I just want to talk about this, okay? So, if you guys remember, there's an episode in Star Wars, the Clone Wars, where Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka land on this planet, and we see this basically this holy trinity of the Force, right? We see the Father, which is kind of the person that is keeping like the balance between his daughter and son, and his son represents the dark side, and the daughter represents the light side. Now, what we see is that the daughter ends up dying because the son kills Ahsoka, and the daughter that is the light side gives her force energy to Ahsoka for Ahsoka to come back to life. But we see that in Star Wars Rebels, we saw that when Ahsoka was in the world between worlds, the daughter, which represents the light side, we saw her in Star Wars Rebels in the form of a bird, and she kind of follows like basically Ahsoka throughout everything, and I don't know why. I can't explain it. They don't really explain why that happens, but I believe that there is something in that, because then when Ezra unlocks the world between worlds in Star Wars Rebels, what do we see? We see hieroglyphics with the father, the daughter, and the son. So what I am painting to you guys, that there is something interesting going on there, and I believe that we are maybe going to see them again. And I think that's going to be a big thing for Ahsoka, because she has a deep connection to them, given that they basically predicted Anakin's future and obviously wiped his memory, so he doesn't know that he becomes Darth Vader. But there's a lot there that, as I said, I think has been untouched since Star Wars Rebels, and I believe that when we go to Star Wars, as we go through the Ahsoka show, they are going to kind of explain all of these things that have kind of been left away. Also, I think another question mark is that I think we're going to see some signs of Kanan Jarrus in this show, okay? Because if you guys remember, in Star Wars Rebels, Ezra was interacting with a wolf that was in the voice of Kanan. So that also is giving us some signs that Kanan is still in the Force somewhere in the form of a wolf on Lothal. So, I said, man, there's just so much to kind of go into, but this is my theory. I believe that we're not going to see a lot of this stuff until Ezra Bridger is back in the fold, and we have to see Ezra back, because I believe that, and Ezra himself has a huge Force connection to animals in general, which how him and Thrawn were able to, go into like this unknown galaxy in space. But that is kind of where I see it tied. Now, as I said, I think with Ahsoka and Sabine, we are going to see a bunch of things happen. Like they're going to go into unknown regions of space. They're going to be fighting against Balin and Shin and Morgan Elsbeth, and there's going to be a bunch of interesting things. But I don't think the tide changes in the show until we see Mr. Ezra Bridger. And that is when I believe things are actually going to kind of shift, and we're going to really get deep into the Force, because that's what happened in Star Wars Rebels. When Dave Filoni wrote that show, he centered everything around him as in regards to how deep, you can go in the Force. So, that's really the best way to explain the first like 2 episodes. Where we are left off is basically like Ahsoka and Sabine are about to go on another adventure, and that is where we're going to, see a lot of answers about how their fallout happened, but also what is the state of like Thrawn, and I believe that we're going to see where Thrawn is in the next episode. And I believe we are going to see Thrawn basically communicating with Morgan Elsbeth. And when we see that, I believe we're going to see Ezra. And then, now I want to talk about one last thing. I totally forgot. Let's talk about this Inquisitor, because I believe that is also a really big thing that's kind of been going around lately. So in the end of Ahsoka, we saw a Inquisitor that was made that basically fought Ahsoka. Ahsoka did this cool dodge, whatever. So here is my theory. Okay, the Inquisitor that fought Ahsoka in the second episode of the Ahsoka show cannot be Ezra, because Thrawn and Ezra are stuck in this unknown galaxy, and as of all we know, Thrawn has not been back yet. So and technically they have no way back. That's why they're trying to get Thrawn, because they're trying to bring Thrawn back. So it's not going to be Ezra because he's with Thrawn. A lot of people are saying that it is Star Killer. Now, I don't believe it is Star. Well, no. Now, a part of me doesn't believe it is Star Killer because he's so powerful and he's like OP. I mean, he's basically Luke Skywalker, and this is spoken from the Star Wars creators herself. They said that I'm pretty sure George Lucas said this. He said that Star Killer is basically Luke Skywalker if he was trained by Vader as a kid. So the power level is insane. So obviously he would have to be nerfed at this point, but if it is Star Killer, to paint the idea of Anakin's apprentice fighting against Darth Vader's apprentice, that will be one of the craziest just plot points ever in Star Wars history, and I will cry. You know what I mean? I will legit cry. So I don't think it is him. In my opinion, I think there's a chance for us to see Star Killer, but I just don't think, because to me the power levels are just, he's so much powerful, and if they nerf him, I wouldn't be a fan of that. But Sam Whitworth, the guy who voices Star Killer, did say that Dave Filoni talked to him in the early developments. It was talking about the idea of Star Killer becoming a Inquisitor. So you never know what could possibly happen. But that's really all I have regarding the Ahsoka show. I would give it a 9 out of 10. I think, as I said, I think the setups are perfect. Yes, there were some issues, but I don't think it destroyed the show. And in my opinion, this is the show that's going to get Star Wars fans excited. And I believe that they need to keep this story going. So I'm all in all happy. Shout out to Dave Filoni. He understands Star Wars. That's the fact. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful day. Please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. And peace out.